We'll get in there a little bit with those amazing, great stories. As Akil, our producer, loves to hear from us. You know, he just thinks we just have the most amazing show. I mean, the guy, look, he's cheering, he's jumping up and down. Okay, easy now.
Is he really jumping?
Yeah, the building's shaking. Easy. Okay, Imran, assalamu alaikum, bro. Talk to me.
Walaikum salam. Walaikum salam. Numayar, how are you today? How's your fast going? Mine's it's getting to me today, and I've got a bit of hay fever on top. So hoping this good news cheers me up.
Well, listen, it's easy to sort the hay fever out. Stick a mask on your face continuously. Honestly, it worked for my brother. He goes, this year his hay fever has been great because he's got a mask on all the time. So that's my advice.
Not at home, right? I'm going to wear a mask.
Even at home, man. Nothing wrong with that. Don't worry. Your wife knows what you look like. Your child knows what you look like. It's okay. They're not going to think you're an intruder or anything. So tell us, what are we doing? What are we doing today? Why are we on this radio station trying to promote good news?
Yeah, so as we know, a lot of news that we turn on, we discussed it last week, bit of doom and gloom, but we're just trying to share a bit of good news. So I'm super excited about our special guest today, like really excited because I've been seeing his work for a long time now. So yeah, really happy. And Numayar, you dropped this on me very like in short notice. I'm a bit starstruck.
That's how we do it, man. In Leicester, that's how you do it. I mean, look, it's like, yeah, listen, we're doing this today. Yeah, nice. Let's go do it. Okay. Actually, yeah, I do like that. I'm going to be honest with you. In London, okay, my friends are very time short or limited for time. So if you want to go out with them, you have to plan a week ahead, 3 weeks ahead. In Leicester, guys, we're going out. We're doing this. We're doing that. It's all easy. You know, that's what life should be. You know, I'm not saying, you drop everything. You know, I don't like those guys who just dump their wives and kids and run off with their mates for 2 weeks. Producers apparently. No, he doesn't. He actually loves taking his family. I do see that. You know, one thing I like seeing on social media is when families go out to eat and so on, or on holiday, and you can see the natural love and so on, the good news being shared. So, what's our good news today? Before we introduce Dilly properly, tell me a little bit of any good news that you've got for me today.
Yes, I've been looking, and it's kind of been a slow week, but there's a few things that I found which were really interesting, as I discussed my love of comic books last week, I came across a graphic novel which was created by people who are actually homeless. So it's called The Book of Homelessness. And it's a stunning anthology sort of stories and drawings created by people who've really sort of felt the pressures of homelessness. And I thought that was a really good way to get the message across, kind of hit the youth a little bit more. I've ordered my copy, so I will be sharing some of my thoughts later on. But yeah, it's such an amazing thing, and I love how people can use their creativity to try and get a message across. We can always shout from the rooftops, but if you're looking at different mediums and different ways to sort of connect with people, that's a big plus for me.
I know.
So that was really cool. And obviously, with being Ramadan as well, is very close to us, trying to make sure that we're all sort of fed and happy and sort of comfortable this month. So yeah, it's kind of a big thing for me. So.
Don't forget to mention the word giving as well. Obviously in Ramadan we are extra giving and so on. But when you mention the homeless and so on, we have them all around us. And just to get rid of that myth, homelessness is not just amongst the non-Muslims and non-Asian. Homeless affects everybody. Homelessness, I've seen with my own eye, very smart-looking people in suits and so on. And I used to work for the homeless center in London and so on. Absolutely. You don't know who's homeless and so on. So the good news is that as Muslims, we love to help. And you've seen that, whether it's our own people or anybody, especially during Ramadan and so on, people love to give. So I'm really glad to know that there is a different medium, as you said. So these are stories by the homeless people in the media rather than just us talking about them. They're talking about themselves.
Really changed my perspective. The City Retreat actually gave me the opportunity to work with some homeless people before, and it was really eye-opening hearing the story sort of firsthand, because you kind of walk past people and it's really bad, but you turn a blind eye and things like that. But actually, once you get to hear the stories, you really understand. Like, you're not just giving money away for people to buy drugs. Like, people think that, oh, they're just homeless, they're going to spend it on things which you don't care about and stuff like that. But it's not the case. They've actually got stories, they've actually got history, and a lot of things which they could have wanted to prevent, maybe they couldn't have. And once you hear those stories, it really changes your outlook on things. So yeah, it's a really big thing. So I'm really impressed by this.
But let's be honest, your main thing is a comic. You just love your comics.
Yeah, I do. You don't want to keep doing that, right? But the other thing, all profits are shared with the homeless as well, and creative workshops for people who are homeless. So that's another big thing as well. So it's not just getting the message out there; it's also going back to the community and the people who need it. So that was really cool.
Excellent. No, that's great. Now, while you said creative and so on, can we give a little shout out to your brother, my brother, Riaz? Can you tell us a little bit about the work that he's doing right now? Because I'm very impressed with this young man who's so shy and so on, but this work he's doing. Tell me just quickly, I'm going to give you 1 minute to tell me about this.
Absolutely. So yeah, my brother Riaz is very, very shy. Doesn't want to come on camera. Doesn't want to speak on the radio. But he does a lot of good charity work of his own accord, of his own back, without any support. And he doesn't really know who to go to. But he is a graphic designer by trade, and his idea was to bring sort of merge the fashion industry with sort of charity. So he looks at things which people would be happy to buy in a shop. So if you go on the high street and buy a lovely looking top, and what he's doing is raising money for certain sort of certain campaigns. So he did Yemen. So he helped the Yemen appeal, where he did a sort of a T-shirt range which kind of described what was going on in Yemen, and he's currently looking at helping Palestine. And he's done a new sort of T-shirt range there. And what you do, you kind of donate a minimum of £5, and you actually get the T-shirt as well. And he didn't want it to be like a T-shirt where he kind of like plastered the name charity on. You see none of the name, none of the branding there. You just see the logo and what he's designed with his sort of mind's eye and what he's kind of looked at. And yeah, he's got really, really good eye for fashion, eye for design. He's designed for places like Boohoo and Disney as well. So it's not some small time stuff. So he's done some really big work, and he's actually using that skill to put back to the community. So yeah, I'm super impressed by him. I'm trying to get him to come on and maybe discuss.
Well, let's keep trying, because I'm meeting him tomorrow, hopefully, to see some of his work and also discuss what we can do together and so on, what we can do for the future. But I am actually excited because I do get fatigued, as Ramadan approaches and so on, with charity, in the sense that it's such a beautiful thing, but sometimes we can overdo it by doing the same thing. I always wonder what's going to be new this year. So when I heard what your brother's doing, I thought that's really good. It's something innovative, something different. So inshallah, I'll meet him tomorrow and see if we can get him on. If not, we'll drop a link at the bottom of our show.
You might be able to convince him. As Big Brother doesn't really hold weight, but you might be able to. Right. And it's just the charity's called Neighbours in Paradise, and obviously that's kind of our ultimate destination. Yeah. So so wherever we are, that's where we want to be, right? We want to be neighbors in paradise. So that's kind of the name.
Right now you're in Iceland, from what I can see. You've got the northern lights glowing. Yeah, I went to Iceland. It took me 4 hours in freezing cold in the middle of the night to track down the northern light, but I actually saw it. It is amazing. It is amazing. And we had a lovely hot cup of tea and coffee and all this thing just to keep us going. But I didn't know you had to chase the northern light. You kept moving from place to place. Okay, anyway, that's a quick diversion. Listen, we're already 10 minutes into the show. It's amazing how quickly time goes. I was going to say, what do you wake up to? Because I found this really nice story coming out from Australian University. They've done a research. When I say a university, when I say research, that's authentic, okay? I mean this genuinely. By the way, for the listeners out there, we resource our stories from all kind of medias, local, international, and so on. Some of them like Positive News, Squirrel News. You can find them online, and any of the stories that we talk about, it's just us narrating it. But we're in no shape or form connected to them, or we work for them or anything like that. We're totally just our own views, just sharing good news with you guys. So that's just my little thing. What do you wake up to? Because I'm going to ask the same question to you and to Dilly when we bring him in. Me, I wake up to the adhan. Do you know why that works for me? I've come to realize why. I wake up because I feel guilty if the adhan carries on and I go back to sleep. Okay, so it's on my phone. I don't mean like I can hear the adhan of Masha Umar or anything like that, at Fajr time, which would be great, but I don't think my neighbors will appreciate it. But this university in Australia, they found that if you wake up to something that you really like, you wake up positive, you wake up a bit more vibrant, ready to get on with things and so on. So what do you guys wake up? What do you wake up to?
So what do I wake up to? So unfortunately, I'm blessed to have a body clock which kind of on the dot sort of 5 a.m. decides to. Well, it's not blessing because on my days off I struggle to sleep. But kind of 5 a.m. I always wake up 5 to 6 a.m. I don't know why. I've always been doing it since I was young, just waking up on time every day. I don't know why. But recently, what do I wake up to? So I don't really have. I've never set an alarm on my phone, which is kind of hard to believe. But yeah, I don't. And what do I wake up to is recently when I do try and sleep in, my son jumping on the bed and trying to open my eyes and say, "Daddy, wake up," and pries my eyes open. So yeah, it's that's kind of what I'm waking up to at the moment.
Any fathers or any mothers who have the child opening their eyelids. Right, let's not keep our guests waiting anymore. Let's introduce Mr. Dilly Hussain. A lot of people know him already for the amazing 5-pillar news media outlet, as well as this amazing podcast called Blood Brothers. It's not gory, it's amazing. It's Blood Brothers. So if we could bring in Dilly Dilly, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our Good News Show. And today, just before I let you say a word, we have named it Fake News versus Good News in honor of you being on here. So go ahead, Dilly. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those people that have been living under the rock that don't know anything about your production.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Brother Numayar, Brother Imran, jazakumullah khair for inviting me on today. A great honor, and I'm excited to have this conversation. In terms of who I am, I'm a journalist by profession, but I haven't been doing much journalism in the recent years. I find myself delivering lectures and doing podcasts, and on the odd occasion appearing on the media to discuss current affairs relating to Islam and Muslims. I'm the co-founder and deputy editor of 5 Pillars News, which launched in 2013, and as it stands is the largest independently regulated English language Muslim news site in the world. Also the host of the Blood Brothers podcast, and as you rightly mentioned, it's not a gory thing. It's called Blood Brothers for 2 reasons: because the co-host is my younger brother, and because the guests, predominantly being Muslim, are our brothers in faith or sisters in faith. If you want to see what I get up to in my spare time, you can check me out on all the social media platforms under Dilly Hussain 88. And so it's interesting. You said that. What do I wake up? What do you wake up to in the morning? I find myself waking up to a lot of work emails.
Oh no!
And it's the truth of it. And I wake up also with a lot of news alerts, because as journalists you have to set up news alerts, and you have to kind of schedule out what news items you're going to cover for the day. But one hadith which comes to mind whenever I wake up. Now, there's a difference of opinion with regards to the authenticity or the grading of this hadith, but it's the one where Rasulullah ﷺ said, that the one who wakes up and does not think of the affairs of the Muslims is not from us. And there's various narrations of this hadith. Again, its authenticity, its grading is disputed, but nevertheless, we can take from that hadith the fact that when you wake up, you think of your fellow Muslims, your fellow citizens who may be in a far less privileged situation to yourself. And the age-old conversation that we've had at 5 Pillars, internally, externally, with Muslim community members, faith leaders, supporters, critics, well-wishers, you name it, is how do you strike the balance between good news and bad news?
That's it. That's the thing. You know, do we really wake up? No. Let me take you back a little bit. You know, when you said when we wake up, before we go to sleep, we should also assess what we've done for ourselves and what's going on and so on. This was something my father taught me before you go to sleep, the good and the bad that you've done. But you've just brought in a beautiful fact that in the morning when you wake up, yes, you should think about what's going on, what do you need to do about the house, the community, and so on, what can be done. But do we do that, though?
I know it's a cliche when we say these things. Many of us don't, starting with myself. Even something like, my dear brother, Hamza Zoltzis, who's with Sapiens Institute, he always said one thing to me, which always resonated with me, and it struck me quite powerfully. He said, we should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every single heartbeat. Because if you look into it analytically, what single heartbeat requires biologically for the whole body, it requires endless gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there's the issue of you wake up with your health, your wealth, your limbs, your senses, your family, your loved ones. And it's at that point you should question yourself as to how will my day go today? Of course, people have work, you have family commitments, you have work commitments. Some of us try squeezing dawah commitments. But I'm not sure which statement who it was from. I'm not sure if it was from one of the scholars of the Salaf, but it was something to do with, you should never have the same day over and over again. If you've had the same day every day, there needs to be a level of reflection as to how productive am I being in terms of internally within my own sphere, my family, and externally with regards to the community and so forth.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, so, it's interesting that today's title is Fake News versus Good News.
Yeah.
The age-old conversation we've had, as I was saying, is how do you strike that balance? How do you strike that balance between good news and bad news and fake news? And even from within bad news, there could be good news. Yeah. If I was to just highlight to you, for example, what I mean by good news that can come from bad news. So we know that unfortunately, Facebook, as a huge social media giant, one of the biggest, has problems with policing, monitoring anti-Muslim hate stories and posts. It's very difficult, right? For some reason or another, let's not go into the politics of it, but there is a huge problem with Facebook monitoring hateful posts against Islam and Muslims. So
as with a lot of other media outlets as well, I have to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. So positive news that has come from this negative reality is that there is a Muslim advocacy group in New Columbia in the United States that's now suing Facebook, saying that, okay, enough is enough. For about 15 years strong, people have been getting away with practically inciting hatred and murder against the Muslim community, and nothing's being done. Whereas if similar things were said, in fact, if far lesser things were said about other communities, Facebook's weight will come down on them like a ton. So this advocacy group in New Columbia is now suing Facebook because they believe they have a strong enough legal case to prove that anti-Muslim discrimination and hatred and violence on Facebook has been going unaccounted for too many years. That is an example of where a positive story has come from a negative reality.
I agree. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit. Imran, do you remember where you first saw Dilly? Let me tell you where I used to see him the most. I actually want to share the personal story, but I'll tell you the slightly professional. So this young man, all these huge stories were blowing up around us in the 2000s and so on. And there was this young man that used to be on Sky News. He looked a bit like us, brown skin, black hair, with a beard. And he had the name Dilly Hussain. I thought, wow, on Sky News, you got somebody who's actually... And he was everywhere. And he wasn't those guys that was mumbling and just being apologetic and so on. He was actually standing his ground. So Dilly, I want to say thank you for that. I've never actually managed to say that. You know what? At that time, I really appreciated the fact that there was somebody who was speaking quite coherently, answering back, and so on. That was, to me, was great news, good news. And that's when I started, okay, 5 pillars. I understand that now afterwards.
It's a difficult job, I'm not going to lie to you, because when you appear on the mainstream media, you're entering the lion's den, right? And in most cases than not, it's not going to be a fair platform. You're not only going to be up against your co-hosts, your co-guests.
You're really, really young as well, by the way.
I was in my mid-20s when the appearance you're talking about, the mid to late 2000s. Yeah. One such example, when I appeared on the Good Morning Britain show with Piers Morgan in 2019, when you appear there as a normal, non-Muslim, mainstream citizen of this country, you don't have to worry about the presenters being against you. You just need to worry about really how am I going to engage the opinions and the views of my fellow guests. But I had to deal with Piers Morgan. I had to deal with, I believe it was William Shawcross or someone from the former chief of Ofsted. And the conversation was about obviously the RSC bill and the pro-LGBT curriculum and the parents protesting in Birmingham. And it's very difficult. But alhamdulillah, the dua I always make before going onto these platforms is the dua of Musa alayhi salam, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. And it is the same dua that the Musa alayhi salam made before he approached Fir'aun. And it's the same one I ask Allah, and I know that my teachers have told me this is a special dua for the knots in our tongue to be loosened so the truth prevails with the permission of Allah. So the mainstream media is a lion's den. I mean, I've shared platforms with Andrew Neil, with Mr. Paxman, with Piers Morgan, with Kay Burley, with Nikki Campbell. It's difficult because it's not a fair game. So they have a particular kind of Muslim that they'd like to be on those platforms, right? When they don't get that, then it becomes a showdown between not just myself and the host, but it's myself and the host and the guest. But alhamdulillah, every time I go, I always introspectively review my contribution very critically. There's always things which you could say better, arguments that you can refine. But yes, I pray to Allah that He continues to give me tawfiq to do this. And if there is someone better to replace me with them, inshallah ta'ala.
No, that's fine. Look, as I said, from a young age, you stepped into the lion's den in your own words and so on. It was good that you engaged. Imran, do you remember any of those news?
Yes or no? So I've been following Dilly, your work for a long time. Follow you on Twitter, which is quite fun. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens on Twitter. But yeah, it's really strange. Like just hearing you speak, I'm so like just so proud, right? Just so articulate, and obviously watching you on Good Morning Britain, watching you on Sky News, and watching all these places, and following Five Pillars as well. Yeah, it's just just pleasure to be in your presence, really. And yeah, it's just so yeah, Jazakallah khair for joining us on the show. But yeah, I'm trying to think what the actual first moment I remembered you was. But I was thinking about it's like I've always known your name for like forever. Like it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Dilly Hussain, Five Pillars. I know that guy, but I've never thought.
Sorry, man. Are you trying to say it's getting a bit old now? His name. We need to do a new presenter.
No. Anyway,
have to change his name.
Kind of like so it's kind of like a name that is kind of synonymous with news, with a Muslim journalist and Muslim journalism, and it's something like I've always aspired to kind of like kind of go that route at one stage in my career. I was like, oh, this is something I should do. And it's someone I looked up to, and it was really so. I don't know what the exact first moment was. I can remember I've probably tweeted at you a few times as well in the past years, which you've probably forgotten about. Which I guess we could dig them out somewhere.
Imran, what's your Twitter handle? It's not Funky Haji or anything like that, is it? That it'll stand out.
No, it's Vocal Imran. Vocal Imran.
Ah, see, how are they going to remember that? Come on, man.
Yeah, no one's going to remember me. But I've changed it like 6 times in the last.
Make it into Handsome Haji.
That's what I do. Handsome Haji. I might just do that now. But yes, I don't know when the first moment is, but yeah, I just want to thank you for all the work you've done.
No, the reason I made
Five Pillars is a really, and I love, I love about Five Pillars. When it first started, obviously I was like, this website needs updating and so a little bit because I'm like a web designer by sort of trade and stuff. But now I really like it, really smooth, clean, everything.
It was really data, and to think that we even put Z at the end of Five Pillars was
that was one of the. I was like, come on, guys.
But that's a 2000 thing, right? So
I lay the entire blame on my business partner and the editor, Roshan Saleh, who is a veteran in war journalism, who felt that putting a Z at the end of Five Pillars would make us cool.
And light-hearted as well in some way, yeah?
Yes, but when we started appearing on mainstream media with a Z at the end, I said, then we put it to a vote, and it was 93% of our readership said that Z has to go. So we got rid of the Z.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the weird thing is when I search for Five Pillars, I still spell it with a Z.
I know lots of people do that, bro.
Yeah, I still search with a Z because it's just synonymous with how I came to know you.
Dilly, let me ask you this question. We have a good friend of mine in the studio. As soon as I walked in, I said, you're on the show. He goes, can you just ask him, what is it that he does in the garden? What's the story? I don't know. Apparently you go around and around in the garden. Is it some tawaf or something you do in your own garden? What's going on?
There's last Ramadan, and it's something which you actually mentioned earlier on in the show about Ramadan comes, we do charity, but it becomes stressful at sometimes, even though it's good and it's khair and we pray to Allah that He rewards us in multitude, fundraising can be stressful. And so we had to make fundraising videos for Five Pillars. Now, when we fundraise for Five Pillars, you have to appreciate the context in which we're fundraising. We're essentially up against, from a visual point of view, from an imagery point of view, we're up against humanitarian organizations that have widows, orphans, war-stricken Muslims. In terms of visually, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Then you have dawah organizations who have white folk doing shahada. Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Yeah, people love giving to that. And then you have Five Pillars, right? A media organization. Now, when you think of giving in terms of charity, in terms of sadaqah, unfortunately, we're living at a time where imagery is powerful and giving sadaqah is an emotional act. It's a spiritual one, but it's usually...
You got to draw them in. You got to draw them in.
Yeah. So when we have to compete with people's attention on social media, we have to make some wacky videos. So I think the video which our dear brother is referring to is one which I made in my garden, going round and round in circles. And the message of that video was, we as a Muslim community, we keep going round and round in circles in complaining about the media's depiction of Islam and Muslims, and then complaining that we don't have our own media, and then we do have our own media, we don't support our own media. That's the circle that we have. So me walking around doing mini tawafs in my garden.
Okay, now that adds up. Okay, Imran, remember we spoke about this yesterday. We said we're going to corner him with this very solid question. We're going to do this in the next part. We're going to come up to a break very soon. So before we go on to the break, I got an extremely important question. We've taken the poll and all this kind of thing. Dilly,
Yes.
Is it ajwa or majdul? Do you break a day fast with? Ajwa or majdul? Dates.
Pardon?
Dates. Which dates do you break your fast with?
Oh, medjool date. There's no particular brand. It's
No, we're not naming any branding or shaming anything there. I just need to know that. That's one of the key questions I was asked. Next one, is it chicken or meat samosa?
Meat, always.
Good answer, yes.
All right, guys. We will have, on a serious level, we'll have really hardcore questions later on. For now, we're going to go into a little break. We'll be back with you guys very soon. Radio Ramadan. show on Radio Ramadan. Thank you for joining us. If you're listening to us live, brilliant. If not, it's still as great as listening to us live. Whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, we have some amazing people with us. As you know, my own blood brother here is Imran Haji, who's been helping me, supporting me on this show. Hopefully it will be for a long time. And we have this amazing guest, Dilly Hussain, editor, co-founder of 5 Pillars, without the Z now, and Blood Brothers, again without the Z. Oh, I just realized you got me sticking with a Z all the time.
We've abandoned the Z at all costs. There is no more
Zs.
Drop the Z. Yeah.
Okay, so Imran, take us through another good news before we bug Dilly for his good news.
I was going to circle back to, Dilly mentioned how Facebook, obviously, that we got someone actually challenging Facebook about the Islamophobia and things. And I wanted to shout out our sister, Wajida Yusuf, who actually has written a report about social media and how, like different news sites will target sort of Islam in different ways. So we can share that. So that's something I wanted to shout out. And obviously, Numayar, you know Wajida quite well as well.
Yeah.
She's does a lot of sort of activism, a lot of work, and a lot of things.
And recently,
yeah, that's a report that she shared with a lot of people. And it's kind of like universities have picked it up and they want to do studies on it. So I thought I'd give her a shout out. That was
excellent.
Really
excellent.
cool.
Well,
Really
that's
cool.
our local lady here. And again, I've had the privilege of traveling with her multiple times and so on. Amazing sister. Very inspirational, actually. I introduced her to my daughters and so on. Actually, talking about inspiration, 5 Pillars. One of my nieces is very keen on going into journalism and so on. And we don't have outwardly that many female Muslims in the media, mainstream stream media and so on. But I'm always promoting to my nieces, my daughters and so on actively, look, listen, we need a representation. We need a voice. We need a clear voice, strong voice and so on. So Dilly, your staff, what kind of ratio is it at the moment, if you don't mind me asking, male, female, and so on?
Generally speaking, I mean, the core staff is still disproportionately male. Mm-hmm. We have sisters who volunteer. We have sisters who contribute, paid contribution. But in terms of the core staff, because we're not going to play the game of gender ratio, we're going to do it based on merit. If someone is qualified and has the experience and they deliver, that is the litmus for us to employ people. It's not based on gender.
No, that's fine. That's agreeable.
Yeah. So I know there's certain organizations out there that feel that they have to have some kind of ratio. That's fine. If you feel that you need a ratio quota for genders, that's absolutely fine. At 5 Pillars, we do have sisters who work for us, but it's still disproportionately and predominantly male. But then again, our team itself is very small. In terms of actual full-time staff, there's myself, there's Roshan Saleh, my business partner and the editor-in-chief. We have a dedicated fundraiser. He has subcontractors who work for him when it comes to fundraising. We have a web developer and an IT man, and we have graphic designers. Now, these are individuals who we pay, but they have subcontractors working under them, and they have sisters involved. Then we have writers and contributors and who contribute towards the website editorially. And that's where you will find most of the work and contribution from our good sisters who have been contributing towards 5 Pillars since the very early days. We have a sister called Nina Arif. We have sister, subhanAllah, sister Yvonne Ridley, Lauren Booth. We have sister Hafsa Qara, who's an Algerian-based journalist. We have sister Ulfa from Tunisia. We have many sisters from different parts of the world in the UK and beyond who contribute with opinion pieces, editorially, and so forth.
Oh, that's excellent, because this is inspirational.
I'm a firm believer that we have to, and this is actually from the Sunnah, that we employ people based on merit and ability, not because there is some kind of social pressure to have X amount of women and X amount of men. It shouldn't be like that. Certain institutions requires that. There are certain institutions that requires women's involvement, direct contribution, and people sitting on panels, etc., and so forth. The realm of news doesn't fall into that per se. But we have sisters who contribute to us, alhamdulillah.
Well, that's good news. To me, that's still good news that you have got staff members and you obviously look for the right kind of staff members and so on.
Absolutely.
That's the key thing. And it's good news for anyone who's listening out there, especially To be honest, even the males, we don't even have that many Muslim males in the media, in the front line. We do have them. I do read on the bylines and so on, quite a lot of different places, in the standard media. I'm not talking about.
I think the thing about Muslim representation in the mainstream media, at least, is such a broad spectrum, Brother Numayar. You'll find that those big names that we know, I'm not going to mention, there's only a handful, but the big names in BBC, in Channel 4, in mainstream outlets, without taking anything away from them spiritually, but outwardly, there's a certain kind of Muslim which is palatable, which is okay to be on the mainstream. Those who are outwardly devout and are uncompromising on certain positions and principles, their battle is twice as harder to get to the mainstream. Because when you pursue a career in the mainstream, the whole point of being mainstream is that there's certain values and principles that you have to compromise or even let go of to reach there. And one such example is when our dear sister Fatima Manji, who was a Channel 4 presenter, she was the first Muslim woman in hijab to present news. The backlash from just that was huge. And that's just a small reflection of the hard work that still is left to be done by those who are pursuing media careers in the mainstream. And, I never discourage Muslims from pursuing a career in the mainstream. I had a small stint in the mainstream. I had a huge opportunity to work for the Daily Mirror when I was a trainee journalist, became qualified. And then I realized in terms of the atmosphere in the news desk, it wasn't something for me. For me to excel, I had to compromise and even take some very problematic positions in terms of engaging and covering my own community. For those of you who are listening, you can just go to YouTube and write Dilly Hussain Daily Mirror. And I explained my story about why I had to turn down a job at the Daily Mirror. And I just felt that the career that I wanted to carve out myself had to be within independent media serving the Muslim community. Why? It's because we're living at a time, unfortunately, and this has been proven statistically, that there is a huge disparity in the way Muslims and Islam are covered by the mainstream media. So therefore, there is a level of responsibility for there to be an independent voice that gives Muslims that safe space to air their opinions without having to fear that they will be labeled as such. And, it's something that's very important. It's something that we all must, support. No. And I never discourage Muslims from pursuing.
No, that's fine. I appreciate what you just said, but you've brought me on to the next thing I was going to say. Other than yourself, I can only, to be honest with you, I can't think of anybody else that pops into my mind, even though I read a few other. Who else? Who else is there? Like Five Pillars, taking on these kind of stories from this kind of angle and so on. Just give me a few other names.
There's a host of fantastic online Muslim outlets that are doing great work, and I want to give a shout out to them personally.
Yeah,
our brothers at Islam 21C, our brothers at
now it's coming back. Yeah.
Our brothers at Doam, our brothers at One Path Network. They're based in Australia.
I love them. I gotta say, yeah.
So there are Muslims doing fantastic work in the realm of online media, but journalism is something very specific.
Yeah.
Journalism is something that's unique. It's something that requires experienced, qualified practitioners, because it's a trade. News reporting is a trade. Even though we're living at an age of someone who has Wi-Fi and a smartphone can now become a citizen journalist or a blogger or a vlogger, quite frankly, that's not the traditional route that I had to take and others have had to take. We had to undergo certain level of training when it comes to covering news stories.
I was going to, if I just stop you there, very recently I read that you guys have been acknowledged officially. I mean, you get acknowledged, obviously you have to go through all these criteria, but you've recently been acknowledged. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, the award?
Yes, alhamdulillah, on the first night of Ramadan, for those of you who started on Tuesday, if it was your first night, we received the fantastic news that the online media watchdog NewsGuard had rated Five Pillars, had scored us 87.5 out of 100. That ranks us higher than many mainstream media outlets. To name but a few: Daily Mirror, The Sun, The Daily Express, The Star, Al Jazeera, to name but a few. We're on the same level in terms of journalistic credibility as the Telegraph, as the Observer, as the Guardian. Now, NewsGuard are huge. These guys are authorities within this realm. So what they did was they carried out a very intricate audit of our organization, our editorial content, and they graded us 87.5, which is significantly higher than many, in fact, I would say the vast majority of British mainstream newspapers.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, that's really good news.
Alhamdulillah, and this is something that not just us, the community should wear this on our sleeves and be proud that, you know, with such limited resources and funding, we are holding it down in this area of journalism, where basically, whether you agree with our views or not, whether you like our religious positions or not, whether you like specific contributors or not, what you can believe in is that the Five Pillars team are carrying out their journalism on behalf of the Muslim community in the UK and beyond at a very, very professional level. And alhamdulillah, this was something, you know, because look, we don't expect mainstream awards, right? But these kind of accolades means a lot to us. The fact that we are the only Muslim news site that is independently regulated by Impress, which is like the equivalent of Ipso, you know, it should give the community conviction and confidence that, you know, whether we like Five Pillars or not, or whether we like some of their content or not, they're doing what they're doing on a very, very professional basis.
You've hit the nail on the head, the way you said the conviction, because a lot of people, look, I've mentioned Five Pillars, a lot of my friends know it and so on, but new people that have just heard it, they go, so who are they? Are they, like you said, are you some guys who are just blogging and so on? No, you guys are professionals and so on, putting your views out there and so on. So alhamdulillah, look, I won't keep you too long on this subject. It is very impressive. We do need more. We need to go forward and so on. There was a very quick discussion I had with the good lady of the house. I said, look, there's amazing people out there. Yes, non-journalistic, things like One Path, journalistic stuff like yours and so on. But we like seeing slick videos and very good editorials and very well-written things. But are we ready to give a little bit of contribution? That's what I find quite sad, that we want all these great radio stations, TVs and so on, but very little we want to give. We think, well, they must already have tons of money and funds coming in and so on.
Well, I speak on behalf of Five Pillars. We do not have tons and tons of hundreds of thousands of pounds. I think
so are you completely independent of?
Completely independent. Look, we run from two sources of revenue, advertising and monthly subscriptions and donations from the Ummah.
Like patronage.
We are still disproportionate. We are still mainly relying on the community support. But I say one thing, Brother Numayar, money or no money, funding or no funding, the work of Five Pillars continues, because this is a fard kifaya that we have to fulfill. Now, with regards to the quality of the output and even the quantity of output, that's subject to the kind of funding we get. Of course, we do everything with ikhlas and ihsan, but you have to accept that with limited or no funding, it will have a knock-on effect on quality and quantity of the output. Now, I think what's happened is that we have to accept that the mainstream media and the global media industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, not multi-million, multi-billion-dollar industry. It's got the entire support of some of the most richest and wealthiest human beings on this earth, from the 1%. And we're up against this industrial global scale machine that, for whatever reason that we can perhaps discuss at another time, is hell-bent on demonizing Islam and Muslims. Against that, you have the likes of Five Pillars. You have the likes of One Path. You have the likes of Ilm Feed. You have the likes of Islam 21C.
Let me just grab you here quickly. This is one of the questions Imran and I was discussing. Is, as Muslims, and look, this is meant to be the good news show. It is a good news. If we don't discuss these things, you know, we're not going to get to the bottom of things. As Muslims, are we victims of the media? Very, in a quick, can you summarize that? I mean, if you understand what I'm trying to say, is like, as Muslims, have we just become victims of media, or are we doing something about it?
Is that for myself or Imran?
For you.
I'll answer that very quickly. There's two things here. You can be a victim. A victim is a victim. A victim of sexual abuse is a victim. A victim of domestic abuse is a victim. A victim of oppressive laws is a victim. But are you a proactive victim?
That's the thing.
Are you a victim or a victim community that wants to change your circumstance and change your situation? If the answer to that is yes, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, yes, there is wrong that's happening to you or your community, but how do we change this situation? Because that's the kind of victim which is okay. It's the one that acknowledges there's something wrong and they try to change their situation. The victimhood complex, which is incorrect and is not prophetic and is not Quranic, is the one where we're being wronged and we do nothing.
Well, we just say, woe is me, and just sit back, expect somebody else to sort it out. No, that's actually, I'm glad you summarized that so clearly. Imran, I think that's pretty much what we kind of like. Sorry, you've been so quiet, Imran, in the background there. Speak, bro, speak.
Well, I'm just listening, and I'm really taking on board all your points there. And you're absolutely right. You got to be a proactive victim. That's a really, really good way to put it. Because I was talking to Numayar yesterday, and we were discussing like when something happens on the news, like a terrorist attack. I'm just hoping that it's not a Muslim name. You're like, you just really hope, and you just kind of like, even before it's even out there, you're like, it's going to be, and it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. You're kind of pushing the agenda, even when it's not there. You're still feeling like, So the way you've put it is, but being a proactive victim. Yeah, these things do happen. Don't ignore them. But what can we do about it? And I think I really respect that opinion. I'm gonna take that on board myself. It is a really big thing, actually. Yeah.
Just allow me 30 seconds to say something. I mean, look, I just recently got back from the Bekaa refugee camp. It was my first aid deployment, right? And you would never say to a Syrian or a Palestinian.
I was going to say, can you just let people know where it is? And
yeah, so the Bekaa refugee camp is in the Lebanese-Syrian border. There's around 2 million Syrian refugees in this area called Bekaa. Now, you would never go to a Palestinian or a Syrian or a Kashmiri or a Rohingya and say, oh, be quiet, you're just playing victimhood. No. But what the situation is that, mashallah, what I saw from many of the refugees is that they've accepted the war, the oppression, the dhulm that's been put on them, but they are now trying to make a life of themselves as refugees, learning trade, working, going out and earning, teaching Quran in the camps. These are people who have had everything taken away from them. But even then, they are being proactive in trying to make a life out of the situation that has befallen them. So there's nothing wrong with accepting and acknowledging that you are a victim or a victim community. It is about being proactive in this regard and not sitting back and thinking, khalas, I'm the victim. I'm going to blame my forefathers for the problems and I'm going to expect my progeny to sort it out and I'm going to sit back and chill. That's not prophetic or Quranic.
Thank you for that. No, that's a very clear way to understand it and look at it. Dilly, we're short on time. I knew this would happen. Obviously, this is the first time I'm engaging with you like this. I'm no journalist, no nothing. I just love talking, bro, and listening as well. Imran likes listening more than... Thanks, Imran. Inshallah, next time we have longer time, but really appreciate you coming on and giving your point. Yes, our show is the good news. And the good news is that we need to understand where the bad news is as well as the good news and appreciate that's going on, everything around us and so on. And
Absolutely.
Hey, listen, smile even when you get some bad news. That's what I say, because alhamdulillah, it's meant to have happened. It has happened, but be proactive in making sure that you come out the other end positive. Imran, I'll let you and Dilly take us out for the last minute or so.
Yeah, I think just one thing I wanted to mention is that one day I'm hoping for a good news section on 5 Pillars. So I want to see.
Excellent idea.
We scour the web for good news for this show. I was like, it would be great if there was an Islamic sort of good news section that I could just find. So yeah, it's kind of something that
all the good news relating to the Muslim community, go to Ilmfeed. Ilmfeed has all the good news, every little goodness that you get there. And don't just look for the website. Look at our social media.
Yeah.
Good news, bad news, ugly news.
All there. Let's stick to the good news. Dilly, we've only got a few more seconds left. You're doing amazing work. Keep it up, my friend. Okay, we look forward to joining you maybe in the future very soon for another show. Let's see if you have the time. I know you're busy, man. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.